looking at Muslim law. So without taking much time, let us get started with talk one of Muslim law. In today's session, we'll be looking at introduction to Muslim law, sources of Muslim law, and schools of Muslim law. So let's get started with introduction to Muslim law. The Muslim law is also known as Islamic law. The word Islam means or signifies submission to the will of God. And it is mainly considered that it functions on the principles of peace, purity, salvation, and obedience. The Islam's legal system is known as Sharia. The word Sharia means the way. Now let's get started and have few basic inputs on Sharia. The Sharia, which is the Islamic law or Islamic rules and regulations, is said to be originated from Allah, the divine source, and considered as holy by Muslims. It is a word of God which regulates and evaluates human conduct. So here we have two words. Regulates means wherever there is a deviation, wherever there is a scope of error. So it is again the Sharia which brings the things under control. It regulates or it rectifies the mistakes and sets the things on the right path, and evaluates where it offers the right solutions to be taken up or right ways and approaches to be adopted to solve a problem related to human conduct. The Holy Quran is the only disclosed book of Allah, and hence it is of divine origin. Moving on further, okay, let us discuss who is a Muslim. So obviously a Muslim is a person who follows Islam. And who will be following in Islam? So, and to whom this Islamic laws will apply? Basically, this laws will apply to a person who is born as a Muslim or who has embraced Islam or who has converted as Muslim in his later part of life. So the Muslim law applies to both of these categories. So someone who is born as a Muslim, so will follow the Muslim law, and someone who is converted, who has adopted the Muslim law, will also follow the Islamic law. In the landmark case of Azima Bibi versus Munshi, it was observed that a child born out of a Muslim couple would be Muslim. Even if he, by choice, goes to a Hindu temple, the person would be a Muslim till the time he does not renounce his religion. Renounce to live, okay, to stop practicing his religion and converts to another religion. Moving on further, in the case of Bhaiya Sher Bahadur versus Bhaiya Ganga Baksh Singh, it was held that if a Muslim woman has a child from a Hindu man, but the child from the time he was born was brought up as a Hindu, then in this case, he would be called a Hindu. So let's further move on and see the sources of Muslim law. So the Muslim law sources can be broadly classified as primary sources and secondary sources. So in today's session, we'll be first looking at primary sources, then we'll be getting along with secondary sources. So the Holy Quran comes as the first primary source, and that is one and the only one book which is considered to be highly sacred, and all the legal system or Sharia system depends on uh, the verses of Holy Quran. Okay, so the Quran gave the idea that law is the direct commandment of Allah. The Quran is supposed to be a revelation by the angel Gabriel to the Prophet, and it contains about 6,000 verses, out of which more than 200 verses deal with personal law, like marriage, dissolution of marriage, inheritance. Okay, and in the earlier days, uh, the work of Quran was in bits. Okay, it was scattered as it was written in earlier days on palm leaves, camel heads, and other such material, sometimes big boundless rocks. And the major contribution of bringing all this work into a book or into a book form was done by Usman, the third Khalifa. It was all his efforts to gather all these different sources and give it a shape of the holy book. Moving on further, so we have the Sunnah. Okay, Sunnah in a way also means tradition. Basically, it talks about sayings or sayings of uh, Prophet Muhammad, and it relates not only to the decisions and precepts of the Prophet, but also his conduct and practice. Sunnah is often extended to the pre-Islamic customs, which have received tacit approval of the Prophet. The Prophet's actions, precepts, and sayings become sources of the Muslim law. Further, it can be divided into three kinds. Sunnatul Fil. So this talks about traditions that Prophet himself did. And we have Sunnatul Qawl, which talks about what he enjoined by words. Then we have Sunnatul Takrir, which talks about what was done in the presence of prophets without his disapproval. Moving on further, we have Hadith. So, in short, or Hadith means sayings of Prophet that were collected in different authoritative texts. The collection of Sahih Bukhari is the most respected of all among the Hanafis. One of the most important difference between the Sunnis and the Shias is with regard to the Hadith. The Shias do not respect the Hadith unless it is from the household of the Prophet. Moving on further to ijma. So the word ijma can be defined as an agreement of the jurist among the followers in a particular age on a particular question. Okay, so in short, ijma can be stated as a form of commentary, okay, which was followed by the jurist. And it can be in three categories again. Ijma of the companions of the Prophet, ijma of the jurist, and ijma of people in general. And here one important point to keep in mind is ijma shall not be contrary, means it should never be in opposition to the Quran or Hadith. Moving on further, we have qiyas. Qiyas, which means analogical reasoning, that is, drawing inferences by applying a new case to an established precedent. Means here the jurist will look for the earlier verdicts, earlier judgments given in the light of Quran. And one important point to keep in mind that in no way the qiyas should be contrary to the Quran, Hadith, or Ijma. So they should not be in any way opposing to the rules or to the verses of Holy Quran, Sunnah, Hadith, or Ijma. Okay, so then we have doctrine of uh, ijtihad and itihasan. Now, doctrine of itihajud or itihajud means one's own exertions. Okay, it is a doctrine by which an interpretation or reinterpretation of the classical text of Islamic law is done. It can be made of on the basis of reason, but it must be distinguished from free opinion. Again, it should not be based on free opinion. It should be always in the light of Holy Quran, Sunnah, Hadith, and Ijma. And there is no scope of any sort of intervention. Moving on further, we have judicial decisions. So, judicial decisions or the settled points of Islamic law, and these points are binding as judicial precedents. In Hamira Bibi, Amina Bibi, and Zubeda Bibi case, the council granted the payment of interest on unpaid dower, even though interest cannot be interest cannot be charged under the Muslim law. Muslim law is against the payment of the interest. In another significant case of Supreme Court, the Honorable Supreme Court declares the validity of a gift by husband to his minor wife accepted by her mother, though the mother is not the legal guardian under Muslim law, is evident. Moving on further, customs, which are also referred as urf in Arabic. The Islamic law makes occasional references to usages. Such customs must not be opposed to the policy of Muslim law. In Muslim law, customs hold the same rank as ijma, but it must not be opposed to text or to the clear text of the Quran or any of authentic traditions, that is Sunnah. The Sharia Act of 1937 is widely accepted and recognized by the courts, and the courts cannot recognize the customs contrary to the rules of Muslim law. Therefore, customs are applicable in matters arising from agricultural lands, charities, and religions, and charitable endowments, as this are matters excluded in the Shariat law. Further, moving on further, we have legislation. So far as Muslim law is concerned, legislation is not playing a dominant role. Yet, this or some statutes in the field of family law, and some of them include the Waqf Board or the Waqf Act of 1954, the Child Marriage Restraint sorry, Act of 1929, the Sharia Act of 1937, the Dissolution of Muslim Marriage Act of 1939, the Special Marriage Act of 1954, the Muslim Women Protection of Rights on Divorce Act of 1986. So it is a recent legislation in the field of Muslim law. It brought some changes in regard to the maintenance of Muslim law. The legislation is also a good source of law to remove the mischief or defects in personal laws of Muslim. Moving on further, schools of Islamic or Muslim law. Basically, we can categorize this schools into three categories: schools of Sunni, schools of Shia, and there are two other schools which don't fall in the category of either the Sunnis or Shias. So let us look at these schools one by one in detail. So we'll first start with the Sunni schools, Hanafi school. The Hanafi school is based on the name of its founder, Abu Hanafi. And the majority of Islamic schools under this Hanafi school are seen in countries such as India, Pakistan, Syria, Turkey. Okay, most of the schools that have been established or followed in these countries are Hanafi schools. The majority of Muslims are from Hanafi school. The court decide the case of a Sunni Muslim as per the Hanafi school, unless and until it is specified that they belong to other schools. Now, one example for this is like the woman, like in case of divorce, the woman have to wait till 7 years for dissolution of marriage. Moving on further, we have Maliki school. The Maliki school was founded by Malik bin Anas, was a mufti of Medina. The school gave importance to Sunnah and Hadith, and they rarely accept the ijma. The women have to wait for only 2 years for dissolution of marriage. Moving on further, we have Shafi school that was founded by Muhammad bin Idris Shafi, who was a student of Imam Malik of Medina and was considered as one of the greatest jurists of Islam who provided validity to the customs of the Islamic people. Shafi schools are spread in the regions of Egypt, Southern Arabia, Southeast Asia, Indonesia, and Malaysia. Then we have Hanbali school. Ahmad bin Hanbal is the founder of Hanbali school. He was the disciple of Imam Shafi and he strongly opposed ijtihad methods. He introduced the theory of tracing the roots of Sunnah and Hadith. Hanbali schools are found in Syria, Palestine, and Saudi Arabia. Moving further, so we'll have a look and understanding of Shia schools, which are basically categorized as three schools. The first one is Itna Hashari. The schools are mostly found in Iraq and Iran. Okay, in some areas of India where Shia Muslims survive or where Shia Muslims live, we also find the principles of Itna Ashari's school being practiced. They are considered as political quietists. So they believe that the last of the Imams disappeared and would be returning as Mahdi, the Messiah. Then moving on further, we have the Shia's Islamist school, which is seen in India or Western, which is seen in India or known in India as Khojas or Western Islamists, who are mainly the followers of the present Aga Khan, who they considered as the 49th Imam in the line of Prophet. Then we have the Zaidi school, mostly seen in South Arabia. It is the most dominant school among all in Yemen. They are considered as political activism and often rejected the Twelver Shia school philosophies. Moving on further, we have this other schools. And first, let us look at Ibadi school that belongs neither to the Shia or Sunni sect and claims that its history traces back to the times of the fourth Khalifa Ali, Hazrat Ali. It gives more preference to Quran and its followers are seen in Oman. It provided principal consideration to Ijtihad, which was partially accepted by the Sunnis and was completely rejected by the Shias. Moving on further, we have this Ahmadiyya. The Ahmadiyya school claims to be Muslims, but they do not follow Prophet Muhammad. They are followers of one Mirza Ghulam Qadiani, who served the British government, and none of the Muslim government has accepted them as Muslims because they believe this school or this school of thought is completely against the faith of Muslims. So that brings us to the end of today's session. Uh, I hope you had really got a very valid inputs and have gained a good understanding of the Muslim law or Sharia law. So please do uh, forward this good work to other legal students or law students so that it reaches to maximum student community and everyone reaps good benefits of this program. Okay. Uh, Thank you for now. So have a good day. Stay happy, stay blessed.